from the lines across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only around 18.
Welcome to yet another exciting edition of Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network. On this edition of the program, British athletes have a very torrid time at the Monte Carlo Masters. And coming in from the world of football, Super Falcons are sole ticket owners at the forthcoming Paris Olympic Games. As in football, we can inform you that it's been their 6th goal thriller in Madrid. Details of this and more will be yours when we return from break.
Killing him not to counterpunch.
Sports Talk here, and I have with me Kingsley Manuel.
Thank you very much for having me, sir. Very happy to be here this morning.
Okay, we'll get started. And of course, aftermath of the African Games that took place in Accra, Ghana, the sports ministry in Ghana is still holding talks aimed at hosting the Commonwealth Games. It looks like the facilities are there, and so the will of the government is needed at this point in time.
Yeah, the facilities are there when you take a look at, some of the stadiums down there we have in Ghana. You'll see, of course, Ghana is, a little bit rich enough to host the All-African Games. To host the Commonwealth Games. Take a look at what happened at the All-African Games. At least they were able, to give, a top-notch, organization for the All-African Games. Of course, we saw this year. But the question is, won't this be too heavy, for Ghana to carry? Looking at the fact that other countries like Australia, Malaysia, they've actually hands off, in terms of hosting this particular Commonwealth game, the 2026 Commonwealth Games. Won't it be too heavy?
Reason, the high cost?
Yeah, the high cost. Even Malaysia was given the sum of 100 million, pounds, to host, and they say the money is not still enough, to host the Commonwealth game. If you take a look at it, the 2026 Commonwealth Games is just by the corner. We just have 2 years, to the Commonwealth Games, and at this point in time, it's really looking a little bit dicey. But I think the sport ministry down there in Ghana, they've actually checked themselves and see, okay, if we can have definitely 100 million pounds and maybe sponsorship and all of that, we can possibly, host this one. I think we've not seen the All-African game being hosted down here in Africa. So if Ghana should take this one and they have been able, of course, to achieve it, at the end of the day, it will mean a huge one for them, and as well as, Africa, of course, hosting the All-African game. But for me, if you take a look at the economy of Ghana at this point in time, is not in a very good state. Even some Ghanaians, we are not happy with the fact that the government have to dole out a very huge amount of money in hosting the All-African Games when the citizens, of course, are not happy, when the economy down there in Ghana, of course, is not in a very good shape. And this time around, they are looking forward to host the Commonwealth Games. Let's see, maybe they're also trying to leverage on this particular one. It might also be, of economic boost, of course, for them if they properly, host this one. But for me, at this moment, it looks a little bit shaky. Can Ghana be able, to carry this burden that the likes of Australia and Malaysia actually threw away. Let's just keep our fingers crossed and see what they'll be able to do.
Fingers crossed. African Games down and dusted in Ghana, and the government and sports ministry officials there believe that they can as well host the 2026 Commonwealth Games. This is a mega boxed tournament, and a lot of countries have had to pull out because of the high cost of hosting the Commonwealth Games. The Commonwealth Games is not been hosted here in Africa after so many years of belonging to the Commonwealth. Do you think this could be the lure of Ghana trying to be the very first African country to host the Commonwealth Games?
Yes, I think they're trying to create a history, for themselves. They're trying to put themselves on that limelight. Of course, when you talk about the Commonwealth Game, you always refer to Ghana as being the first, African country, to host the Commonwealth Game if they will actualize it, come 2026. And I think for me, that, zeal, for putting up that record and that history is really the drive, from what we're seeing at this point in time, for Ghana. I think they've been so passionate about, a sports organization in the past, years, as it stands. So for me, I think they have what it takes to actually do this if they will possibly, if they will actually, dole out that huge amount of money, because it's going to take a lot. It would definitely take a lot, for them to host this one. Looking at the fact that, so many countries will be coming down from Europe, down there in Ghana. But like I mentioned, it would be a huge, economic boost, for Ghana. Looking at the fact that when these other countries, of course, come, the economy of Ghana, especially maybe in Accra, where this one, of course, will be hosted, Accra, of course, will experience a very huge economic boost. People will have to lodge hotels, a lot of commercial activities, of course, will go on down there, in Ghana, if this one, of course, comes to limelight. So I think they're also looking at the commercial value of hosting this particular one. So we'll just see if they can be able to, host it. But for me, I think the drive also, just like you mentioned, is for the fact that they want to create that record. Being the first African country to host the Commonwealth Games, that would mean a lot, for Ghana.
Ghana in the midst of making history for Africa and for themselves, being the first African country to host the Commonwealth Games if it comes to fruition. But cost implications definitely must be considered in the days ahead to deciding whether Ghana will have it. We've talked about facilities. We've seen them spread across at least 3 cities that hosted the African Games in Accra, Ghana, Cape Coast, and one other city out there in Ghana. Talking about the African Games reminds me that bronze medalists from the Games in Ghana and Nigeria's senior female cricket team, the female Yellow Marines, as their Greens, as they're called, would join hosts. That's Rwanda and 6 other countries for the 2024 tournament coming up in Kigali. 10th edition of the tournament, we are told, is built to kick off on the 27th of May and run through till June 8th at the Yanga International Cricket Stadium. Uganda, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Kenya, Malawi, Cameroon, Nigeria being part of this one.
Yes, and I think for me it's a good one that we're going to be seeing Nigeria once again, competing in this particular event. The last time, of course, we saw Team Nigeria in this one. They came out, in 4th position, and from what we've seen, not, of course, wasn't really a bad outing, for them. We saw their performance at the All-African Games, though the male team, of course, did not really do well. But the female team were able, of course, to rally around to get, a bronze medal. Talking about the yellow, greens of Nigeria. And that was actually, of course, their first outing. Cricket was actually making its debut at the All-African Games. And the yellow greens as well didn't disappoint. Coming back with a bronze medal was a very huge one, of course, for them. So competing with the likes of Kenya, Zimbabwe, Uganda, Rwanda as well, I think it's their familiar foes. The yellow greens, they've competed with this team. Even when you take a look at the performance of the yellow greens, teams, a country like Rwanda, Kenya, and Uganda, of course, they should be wary of the performance, because I think if they actually finished 4th last time, they'll be coming up this time around, of course, to showcase themselves very well. Take a look at their performance at the All-African Games. So for me, I think Nigeria cricket team, they have what it takes this time around, to challenge in this particular tournament.
The Nigerian cricket team has what it takes to be part of the 8-team tournament that will commence in Rwanda in the next few days from now. Let's go to basketball, and in basketball, Rivers Hoopers are beginning to intensify preparations towards the basketball league that's coming up in the next few days as well. We understand that 3 of their new signings have arrived in Nigeria ahead of preparation for the season 4 of the African Basketball League. Kingsley, we saw them sign 33-year-old William Perry, there is John Wilkins, and of course Canadian-born Nigerian Kevin Amayo in the squad as well. These 3 will definitely be part of the Kingsmen going to the basketball league.
Huge boost for Rivers Supers ahead of the Basketball African League. And for me, for what we've seen so far, those players, of course, will really be of help to them, because you take a look at their performance at the Lewis Edem tournaments, not the kind of performance we expected. We saw them, of course, losing to, Hopes and Reed, and couldn't get past, of course, the team they beat the last time in the tournament, talking about Knight of Ghana. So for me, I think with the coming of these 3 players, they will actually gain much of that experience. And it's good of a thing they are coming out at this point in time, so that they can possibly train with the rest of the players and get that synergy and that chemistry, because it's one thing for you to get, those foreign players, and it's one thing for them to understand, your philosophy. So you take a look at the likes of Williams, Amayo, and the rest of the other guy. These are players, of course, that have played very well when he has played very well down here in Africa. They've played in different teams, and they understand what it means, to play in the Basketball African League. So it's good of a thing that they are, boosting. They're actually, trying to boost the strength of the team with these 3 players. We'll just keep our fingers crossed and see what they'll be able to do, because playing against the likes of your US Monastir, APRO, AS Tonnerre, I think they really have to step up their game. For what we saw in the Lewis Edem tournament, I think Ogo Odaldo should make sure that the players, of course, step up their game, because it's not going to be easy, facing these teams I just mentioned, in the Basketball African League.
Talking about basketball reminds me of the latest happening from the NBA, which is the pinnacle of basketball, if you ask me. In the early hours of this morning, we saw Milwaukee Bucks beat Boston Celtics by as many as 114 points to 91 for Boston Celtics. Boston Celtics losing this one, couldn't make as many as 100 points in the encounter, where Nigerian Greek Adetokunbo was off. We understand he has an injury concern, which will need an MRI scan this morning.
I think it was not a very good one, of course. Couldn't for the fact that they couldn't actually put up, up to 100 points, in that particular one, and so sad, that injury as well, coming up, for their man. We just hope, of course, that he bounced back. But I think for me, it's been a long time we've not seen them, of course, posing up to 100 points, in a particular NBA game. And for me, I think it was such a difficult one. But let's hope that, of course, their man will bounce back from injury, and see how far, of course, they'll be able to pull up, the next encounter.
Talking about Adetokunbo, he's been out injured at least 3 times in the last few weeks. Do you think he's injury prone now? Because even before this game, he was listed on the injury list.
Yes, Adetokunbo, for me, I think whenever you're the main man, for your side, it's always a very huge burden. And at this point in time, you always see him playing in several, games. And coming up with just 15 points, in that encounter, and you will say it wasn't really his day. And with the fact that, of course, he was actually injured, actually, made him to have 30 low points as well. On a very good day, you always see him coming up, with, very huge, numbers. But let's just see, of course, how it goes down for him. We hope that he'll be able to, of course, strengthen himself and bounce back strongly.
We hope he bounces back strongly, because before yesterday, the early hours of this morning's game, we've seen Milwaukee Bucks lose, let's say, 4 consecutive games on the bounce, and that looks very difficult for them. In an encounter where they had Dillian Lemon, they had Adetokunbo, and of course Chris Middleton, all pairing or playing at the same time. It's been long we saw the 2 of them, but 104 to 91 over Boston Celtics is a scoreline that I'm very sure they will be happy about after losing 4 games. Charlotte Hornets were able to, take it out Dallas Mavericks in an encounter that turned out to be a home loss.
Yes, from what we've seen, the Charlotte Hornets, of course, losing down there, of course, I think for me,
104 to 130 points at home.
Yeah, and I think they would have possibly, of course, done better in that particular encounter, looking at the fact that, it was a bit, difficult, for them. But on a very good day, of course, you expect Charlotte Hornets, of course, to be able to pull through in such an encounter. But, of course, it was another difficult, one for them. We'll see how far, of course, they will be able to go. Maybe in their next game, they will be able to, of course, redeem themselves.
Philadelphia 76ers took out Detroit Pistons 104 points to 102 points.
Impressive one, of course, for Philadelphia's. If you take a look at it, they've been fantastic so far this season. Of course, with the likes of Joe Embiid, you expected more for them. Joe Embiid, of course, was very instrumental in that encounter. Putting up 37 points. In that game. Tobias Harris, of course, was also not left out as he came up, with 15 points in that one. Kelly Oubre also with 17 points, and I think it's really been a rosy season as well for the Philadelphians. And from what we've seen so far, I think they also have what it takes. They have a claim, this season. And for the Pistons, it wasn't really a very good, outing for them, as they actually struggled in that particular encounter. Most of their players, of course, didn't live up to expectation. We saw our very own Chimezeme too down there, just coming up with 7 points, in that one. The man who actually, of course, was the helm of affairs for them was Jadi Evie, who came up with 25 points. It was not, their day, and we saw the Philadelphians, of course, taking up that particular victory.
Well, Philadelphia taking up that victory, and I think it was good for them. And one team that returned to winning ways is Houston Rockets. What do you make of Houston Rockets returning to winning ways? Because they too had a struggling time, but now they were able to come out with victory over Orlando Magic.
Yes, Houston Rockets struggling. It's been a little bit of struggle for them, but coming up in that that encounter against Orlando Magic, I think is actually a very huge one for them. It might also be a morale booster to the team as well as the players, because we saw some of the players coming up with very, very impressive performance, especially the likes of Fred Van Leeds, who came up with 37 points in that encounter, and Jabari Smith coming up with a total of 23 points as well, and Amy Thompson with 13 points, Dylan Brooks with 15 as well. I think for me, this victory, of course, might be a morale booster, of course, to them. Where you take a look at their performance this season, not only them being ballsy, but I think getting that victory against Orlando Magic, though they were playing at home, I think it will actually, of course, help them in their coming games.
Playing at home, Utah Jazz scored only 95 points as compared to the opponents. Denver Nuggets has scored as many as 111 points.
Yes, of course. Denver Nuggets, winning that particular one away from home. Of course, you expect them to win because the form at which Denver Nuggets are at this point in time, looking very, very fantastic. Don't forget, last season they were also, at the helm of affairs. This time around, they are also, putting up that performance. They're not relenting at all. The likes of Nikola Jokic and also Jamal Murray were very fantastic, of course, in that encounter with 28 points, each, for both players. And I think for me, was a very huge one. So for me, the Nuggets, of course, not relenting. I think they also have something. They have a statement, of course, this time around this season.
Talking about teams that won away, Denver Nuggets won over Utah Jazz there, and it was the same thing that happened between LA Lakers and the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors were able to beat Lakers in Los Angeles 134 points to 120 points.
For me, I think it was a disappointing result because I expected the Lakers to have capitalized on this particular one. Looking at the fact that the LA Lakers, they've been fantastic of recent. I think before this game, they had some couple of unbeaten record for themselves. Coming up in this encounter, I expected them, of course, to be able to take down the Golden State Warriors. Yes, you talk about the Golden State Warriors, they've not been that sparkling. But in a game where you have the likes of LeBron James, where you have the likes of Angela Roselle, I expected, the Golden State, the LA Lakers, to take off this one. LeBron James putting up 33 points in that one, and Hashimura coming up with 20 points, and we saw that man talking about Angelo Rosa with 14 points, as well as Austin Reeves with 22 points. I expected, of course, the Lakers to get this particular one, but when you have a certain player like Damon Green in the Golden State Warriors, as well as Steph Curry, of course you expect it to be a very difficult encounter. Not forgetting Klay Thompson as well, who actually came up with 27 points, and Steph Curry 23 points, and you have likes of Damon Green with a total of 15 points, and Drew Wixon with 17 points. So it was going to be a little bit difficult looking at how these players, they've rejuvenated themselves, talking about the Golden State Warriors players. So I expected the Lakers to get a victory at home, but it was so unfortunate that they couldn't get past the Golden State Warriors.
Phoenix Suns, another home loser, 92 points, as compared to as many as 104 points scored by the the other team from Los Angeles, LA Clippers.
Yeah, a very disappointing result for the Phoenix Suns, 92 to 105. I tell you, I didn't actually see that coming for the Phoenix Suns. I expected them to have got past the LA Clippers, of course, with ease, but was so fortunate to take a look at their performance. Kevin Durant, of course, came to the party, but his performance was not good enough, to lead the Suns, out in that particular one. Just 21 points we saw from Kevin Durant. Devin Booker also was in that particular encounter, but not much, of course, from him with just 12 points. We saw Bradley Beal coming up with 19 as well. Was not a very good performance, of course, from the Phoenix Suns. We expected them, of course, to be able to get past, the Clippers with ease, but losing at home, I tell you, not a very good omen at all. But let's just see how they will be able, of course, to marshal out, their next encounter.
Well, that will be it for this edition. This half of the show. Definitely we'll be back in a jiffy, and when we'll bring you more interesting sports stories, especially from tennis, where the British are having a very torrid time at the Monte Carlo Masters. Coming in from football, a lot has happened. Yes, the Super Falcons are the sole ticket winner for Africa at the Paris Olympic Games. They, of course, their counterparts from Zambia have won to represent Africa at the Paris football event in the next few weeks from now. And UEFA Champions League, there's been a 6-goal thriller in Madrid. Details of this and many more will be yours when we return from the break.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only around 8 a.m.
Telling him not to counterpunch.
Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network, and we'll bring you up to speed with the latest happening around the world of sports. And in tennis, the Monte Carlo Masters is ongoing, and Britain's Jack Draper has suffered a narrow first-round defeat by Hubert Hurkacz at the tournament. Kingsley, this is shocking. World number 39 Draper losing to the Polish 10 seed in the Clinical tournament earlier. today?
Of course, I expected. But Lucas, of course, for me, I expected him, of course, to take down Draper in that particular one because if we take a look at the performance of both players of recent, you really give it to Robert Lucas. He's been there, but not all. He has not really proven himself, for a very long time now. But he has been competing and looking a little bit, consistent. But more of consistency, of course, is needed, from him at this point. Because when you take a look at the way the young gents, let's call them the young gents, are playing, of course, you definitely expect, a player like Robert Cookers to be able to live up to expectation. Now, for me, I think that particular victory, of course, was deserving because Jack Draper, of course, has not been in the best of form, of recent. But for Hookers, I think, despite the fact that he has not been really consistent, of course, with his game, but at least he's been trying, of course, to put a claim in any tournament, of course, I will say. But for me, I think it was a deserved victory for Hubert Hukes.
Deserved victory for Hubert Hukes, and a lot of expectation has been on the Spanish sensation, Carlos Alcaraz, but he had to pull out owing to injury concerns. It's looking like he's going the way of his master, so to say. Rafa Nadal, often injury prone.
Often injury prone, and not a very, very good one, of course, for a player like Rafa Nadal, like Carlos Alcaraz, as it is, because at this age, this is where you're supposed to, hit the button. This is where you're supposed to hit the ground running. You're not supposed to be that injury prone, because when you are injury prone, at this age, it actually brings some setback. It's actually not get you where you want to be, and possibly take a look at a tournament like this and he's having a muscle injury, stepping out, as it is. It's not a very good one. We've not really seen the best of him, of course, this season, though we just saw, a little performance, I think in this last tournament or last two tournaments. But for this, I think Alcaraz has not really, injury has not been his best of friend, and I think you should look for means to see how he can cope this regular injury issue, because if it doesn't, it means it might actually bring a little bit of setback to his career, because there are some tournaments, of course, you have to capitalize on, and at the end of the day, you're opting out, because of injury. Another thing is that your ranking point, of course, will reduce, and your chances of for maybe amassing titles for yourself will also reduce, at this point in time. So, Alcaraz, for me, too early, to start, struggling with injury at this point in time. Though the Barcelona Open is coming up, which of course is the defending champion, we'll see if he'll be able to bounce back and defend the title.
Talking about the Monte Carlo Masters, #1, that that's a tennis event going on right now across the world, and one big name a lot of people are talking about is the world #1 Novak Djokovic. He had just 1 hour 10 minutes to return to winning ways after that early exit at the Indian Wells. He had a Russian opponent to contend with, and it was straight set victory.
First set victory against Sofalin, and of course you expected it, from Novak Djokovic. Looking at the fact that it's been a while. We actually saw him, of course, competing ever since he parted, of course, with his coach. The man, of course, has actually he's been trying to put himself together to make sure he bounced back strongly, and that's what, of course, we've seen from him. Sofalin being unseeded, of course, you don't expect him to be a very tough opponent for the man Novak Djokovic, coming back, after staying away for a little while. So good one for him. I will hope, of course, he actually take this one, of course, to the end.
Novak Djokovic, no doubt, aftermath of that victory over Soflin, we were told that he is the oldest #1, at the ATP to play at the Monte Carlo, 36 years of age. Age being counted for Novak Djokovic.
Yeah, age is counted for him. Of course, the man is aging. Then, from what we're saying, maybe he's
getting better the record of Roger Federer at the tournament as well.
Yeah, a very good one as well. For him. And
you're saying maybe old players don't get to play at the Monte Carlo. 36 years of age.
Well, I see, we're still seeing him, bouncing back. But for me, I think it's a good one for Djokovic, looking at the fact that, the Grand Slam, of course, is approaching. At least he has to get into these tournaments, all these ATP tournaments, to get himself better, because he has not been in any competitive game for like, a month now. And coming down to the Monte Carlos, I think he's just to strengthen himself for the big ones that are coming, talking about the Grand Slam. titles. So good one, putting up this record as well for himself, and looking forward to get this one. I think it will be a morale booster and also a motivation for him ahead of the big ones.
Talking about the big one, it is the Super Falcons of Nigeria that got it right in South Africa. After months of their 1-0 win in Nigeria, they went for a return leg ticket, return leg match in South Africa. 90 minutes plus added time, goalless, and Kingsley, who would have thought that playing at home, Bayana would not take that ticket in 90 minutes?
Yeah, nobody expected that because if you take a look at the preparation, you want to say that the Bayana, they are coming all out, for the Super Falcons of Nigeria. But also what happened at the MKO Abiola Stadium down there in Abuja, they actually, played well. They actually had more of the possession, but the Super Falcons, of course, were very clinical. They tried most kind to keep the ball within them. Chances they got, they were able to convert it, and despite the fact that their key player didn't play in that encounter at the MKO Abiola Stadium, talking about Asio, but she was able, of course, to put up herself, in this particular one. I actually take a look at the game down there in South Africa. It was a very good game for the Super Falcons of Nigeria. They tried most kind, of course, to hold their own. Goalkeeper Chiamaka Nadozie, I tell you, she came to the party yesterday. She, saved a lot of balls, for the Super Falcons of Nigeria. If not, the Bayana, of course, girls, would have actually capitalized on that particular encounter. But for me, it was a very good game plan for Coach Randy Wardrum, getting a win at home, and of course, trying the most he can, to block the balls and trying to get on the counter. That was what the Super Falcons, of course, did yesterday against the Bayana of South Africa, and won the very good one, very good game approach, and the players, of course, live up to expectation. Good one, getting down to the Olympics as well after 16 years. Good record for the Super Falcons and Coach Randy Wardrum.
Coach Randy Wardrum, after that World Cup performance, continue with a qualification for the Paris Olympic Games football event in the next few days from now. But let's look at that game again. Goalkeeper Nadozie, clearly #1 goalkeeper in female football in Africa.
Yeah, clearly #1 goalkeeper in the female football in Africa. We saw a lot of saves.
At least 5 good saves in that encounter.
Yeah, 5 good saves, of course, from her. And that actually shows, her quality. And I tell you, she's been very, very instrumental, for the Super Falcons of Nigeria. We saw her performance, at the World Cup. She was very, very exceptional. Even in the qualifiers, we saw in the game against Cameroon, she was also very fantastic, doing everything she can, of course, to help the Super Falcons. Even at home here against South Africa, she was also, the player who helped, of course, the Super Falcons of Nigeria. And getting down to South Africa as well, she also, live up to expectation. I think for Chiamaka Nadozie, she is, of course, a very good goalkeeper that we should, of course, not joke with at this point in time. And no doubt, of course, she's the best goalkeeper in Africa at the moment. Of course, she was given the best goalkeeper, award the last time that we saw the CAF award, being given, to African players. And from what we've seen, I think she has really proven herself so far.
Let's look at Ajibade, the midfield player in the squad as well. Commanding, giving the South Africans no space on the ball. And, you think that she has arrived in female football.
Of course, she has arrived in female football. Ajibade is one of the best we have, of course, in that Super Falcons team. And if you take a look at her performance so far, even in our club side, the Atletico Madrid side, she always, of course, comes to the party. And at the MKO Abiola Stadium, of course, she was our saver. She actually saved us, in that particular encounter, though it was a penalty. But converting that one properly and also having a very top-notch performance and a standing performance in that game was a very huge credit to Ajibade. For me, Ajibade, she's been very passionate so far in that Super Falcons team. And Coach Randy Wardrum, of course, has been able, of course, to make use of her in that particular midfield. And I tell you, it's been really, really interesting, seeing Ajibade, of course, putting up those performances for the Super Falcons of Nigeria.
Captain Rashida Ajibade put in excellent performance alongside the other girls and to take Nigeria to the Paris Olympic Games. Going to the Paris Olympic Games, a lot is at stake. They have to come against Spain, they come against Japan, and Brazil as well, almighty Brazil, so to say.
A lot, I tell you, Mr. Siri. Can the Falcons, get past this team. Spain, of course, World Cup champion, and Brazil as well. They also have a very good, pedigree. Japan as well, also good in female football. I tell you, that's to say that we really have to put, squad together. Coach Randy Wardrum really have to come up, with a very good tactics. And for the coach, I think he has what it takes. He has the experience when he has to do with playing these teams. Of course, we saw what he did in the FIFA World Cup. So for me, I think despite the fact that we're going to be playing against this big side, I think Coach Randy Wardrum, being at the helm of affairs, will be able to orchestrate the strategy for we to get the victory.
Super Falcons have been to the World Cup, sorry, to the Olympic Games thrice before, but this is their 14th qualification for the Olympics. Had to come after 16 years, and that's quite a long time. They missed out on 3 Olympic Games, and now they return back after 16 years. And this development has excited the Honorable Minister of Sports Development, Senator John Wang Eno, who has saluted the Super Falcons for their feat of returning to the Olympic Games, the biggest biggest sports festival after 16 years.
I think it's a good one as well. Mr. John Wanino getting very huge accolade, since he assumed duty as the sports minister. Under his administration, the Super Eagles went to the finals of the African Cup of Nations after over 12 years. A good one. We saw the performance of Team Nigeria and the All-African Games. The Boxing Federation came to limelight. The Athletic Federation came to limelight. Weightlifting Federation came to limelight. The Wrestling Federation came to limelight as well. And as well, we've been seeing other impressive move as well by the sports minister in trying to make sure that sports actually go in the right direction down here in the country. And under his administration as well, the Super Falcons get to the Paris Olympics. So for me, I think a lot, of course, has really happened in this little time we've seen, for John Wanino. And I think for me, he's actually putting things in the right direction. The only lapses, of course, we're getting at this point in time is the fact that some athletes who participated at the All-African Game have not, they've not still been paid their allowances, which is not a very good news. But according to the minister, he said that the Easter holiday, of course, is the reason why the money couldn't get down to the athlete. But we hope that in the coming days, those athletes, of course, will be paid. But for me, I think under his administration so far, I think things have really gone a little bit better under John Wanino.
We're talking about Easter holiday affecting payments of athletes that were at the African Games. We hope that the infantry holidays as well will not further delay payments of the athletes. But when we talk about the Super Falcons qualifying for the football event at the Paris Olympic Games, they will be joined by Zambia. Zambia went into chestnut and pull out went into fire and pull out the chestnut. Something interesting. They lost the first leg in Lusaka by 2-1 to their counterparts from Morocco, and they went out there to Casablanca to take on their opponents in the return leg fixture, and surprisingly, did beat the Moroccan ladies by 2-0 out there in Casablanca. No one expected this one. Aggregate scoreline 3-2, having lost the first leg 2-1, in Lusaka.
But when you look at the series, Zambia has a female football pedigree than Morocco. Yes, they do. And from what it is, I actually expected them, of course, to get past, Morocco in that particular one.
Apparently because of Barbara Zander.
Yep. And so she was also very instrumental, of course, for them in that particular encounter.
She actually scored the first goal.
Yep. And Morocco, yes, they're actually growing when it has to do with, female football. We saw them at the Women, African Cup of Nations last time. That Bayana, of course, of South Africa took that one. And then we saw them at the FIFA World Cup as well. They also came up to the party as well. But for me, I expected Zambia, of course, to actually get past them, because when you take a look at the pedigree for Zambia when it has to do with female football, of course, I really give it up to them. A good one for them for also getting up the ticket for the Paris Olympic. Congratulations
to Zambia, especially Barbara Zander Banda, who scored 2 goals in that encounter. In fact, she scored that 105-minute penalty to ensure that Zambia was in the Paris for the football event as well. As we saw of Super Falcons coming against Brazil, coming against Spain and Japan, it looks like it's very top group in pairings for African teams at the football event at the Olympic Games, because Zambia as well has very tough opponents to contend with. They have to come against France, they have to come against Germany, and as if that is not enough, they have to come against almighty United States of America.
Really a group of deaths. Really a group of deaths. And it will be very difficult for Zambia, honestly. France, Germany, United States.
There's Australia as well in that group.
It's a no-go area.
Come on.
I don't think they will survive this particular one, despite the fact that, despite the pedigree they boast down here in Africa, that will be a very tall mountain for Zambia to climb. It's a game of football, Mr. Siri. Let's just see what, of course, the Zambians will be able to do.
Let's see what Zambians will be able to do. And with few months to the qualifying draw of the 2025 African Cup of Nations, the Super Eagles of Nigeria are getting ready to be put into Port 1. And this looks like a tricky port for the Super Eagles of Nigeria.
Yeah, of course, it looks like a tricky port, for them. But we just see how it goes. The African Cup of Nations 2025 is just by the corner at this point, and I think after what happened at after what happened in Cote d'Ivoire, there should be top-notch preparation. But as it stands now, we don't still have a coach that will actually lead this team, going forward. The World Cup qualifiers is also by the corner as well. A lot's happening in the Super Eagles of Nigeria that the fans, of course, are not pleased with, at this point in time. Looking at it, the ports, we'll just keep our fingers crossed and see which of the countries, of course, would, go down there, of course, with the Super Eagles of Nigeria. But I think preparation should have started in earnest ahead of the African Cup of Nations in Morocco. We should, if we have actually gone to the final in Cote d'Ivoire, it means we should be looking forward to win the next African Cup of Nations. I think for me, preparation should be in earnest.
Preparation should be earnest, no doubt about it, and that's what they're doing. But for the Super Eagles, how do you prepare without a substantive head coach? A lot of people are still saying, give the job to Finidi George, of course, former chairman of the NFF and now FIFA council member. Amaju Pinnick is throwing his weight behind Finidi George, but some other thing that Emmanuel Muniki has a better resume to becoming the next coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Yes,
of course. A lot of persons, have huge confidence on Emmanuel Muniki and even Finidi George. That Amaju Pinnick is even pointing hands, at this point in time, because Emmanuel Muniki has been with some of these players. He knows them very well. Like the likes of Victor Osimhen, the likes of Kelechi Iheanacho, and the rest of them. He knows these players very well, and that's why everyone is pointing towards him, to be the man, of course, to head the team. But for me, you take a look at what Finidi George was able to do in the two friendly games, you'll see that he still has a long way to go. We're able to get past Ghana, but we saw the Super Eagles of Nigeria, of course, having a shambolic performance, against Mali, and that performance, of course, we saw them drop when it has to do with the FIFA ranking we saw last time. So for me, I think Emmanuel Muniki, of course, should be, or if they can possibly bring, Muniki and Finidi George together to head the side, that would be a good one. Seeing two indigenous coaches, of course, managing the Super Eagles of Nigeria, that would be a very good one, for me, if the NFF, of course, go in that direction. But bringing Emmanuel Muniki alone, he might also, of course, stake a claim. But I think having Emmanuel Muniki and Finidi George, of course, would help the team go a very long way. Emmanuel
Muniki going for the job, Finidi George, and of course, we have 6 others as well, all trying to vie for the job. We hope the Nigeria Football Federation will do the needful and do appoint a very competent coach and not go the way of the foreign coaches this time around. Well, let's go to Europe now, and talking about Europe, the UEFA Champions League is lighting up most cities. Last night we saw 2 fixtures, one in Madrid and the other one was in England. And first, let's look at what happened in Madrid. It was a 6-goal thriller between Real Madrid and their counterparts from England, Manchester City.
Very tight encounter. Of course, we saw down there at the center. Manchester City, came to the party yesterday. Even without Yakima talking about Kevin De Bruyne, they were able, of course, to orchestrate those goals we saw yesterday. 340, of course, came to the party And you talk about likes of Bernardo Silva, Rodrigo, all came to the party yesterday. Manchester City didn't even play as if, of course, they were playing away from home. They went to the Santiago Bernabeu and were able, of course, to stake a claim. Good strategy, of course, you would say, from Pep Guardiola, and they still look like, the fact that they still want to win this particular one. And that's how, of course, it actually pans out last time. We saw them went down to the Santiago Bernabeu. Didn't actually come back, of course, with a favorable result, but were able to do the needful at the Etihad Stadium. Real Madrid, of course, didn't have more of the possession, but they were able to utilize their chances. We saw Vinicius Junior, we saw Valverde, living up to expectation. Luka Modric, of course, in the midfield was able, of course, to hold the midfield for the Madrid side, and was such a very, very impressive performance from them. 3 goals, for both sides. But I think at this point in time, Real Madrid, of course, should be, wary. Coming down to Etihad, it won't be an easy one, because I think Pep, of course, will do everything he can, at this point in time, to able to get that victory. They should have actually win down there at Santiago Bernabeu, giving them that strength or edge of getting down to Etihad. But having that draw at the Santiago Bernabeu, I think is not a very good result for, if you ask me, for Real Madrid, because coming down to Etihad, where possibly you have Kevin De Bruyne coming back, to the midfield, it will be a very dicey one. Yesterday, Erling Braut Haaland, of course, didn't live up to expectation, because the man who normally supplies him the pass, De Bruyne, was not there. But if De Bruyne, of course, should be back in the second game at Etihad, I think Haaland, of course, will actually come to limelight, because most of the passes will get to him, and it will be a deadly one, up front as well, for Real Madrid down there at Etihad.
Will you say the goals are beginning to dry up for Erling Haaland? We saw him at the weekend not scoring, and now not scoring consecutive. That's a shyness in front of goal.
Yes, definitely. Not a very good one. The good drought for him this season has not really been fantastic. And I think for me, if you ask me, just as a reason of the fact that De Bruyne, of course, has not been on the best of form. De Bruyne injury has been a little bit of setback for him. Yesterday, he didn't come to the party. He didn't play yesterday. And we saw Haaland struggling up front. Although you also see that Rudiger was one man, of course, who held him yesterday. He didn't give him any space at all. The man was really marked, by Rudiger. But for me, even at that, you should be able to, strike a balance for yourself as an experienced striker, as someone who has actually been in the box, for a very long time. No matter how Rudiger would be very, very fantastic. I expected Haaland, of course, to have created a difference in that encounter, but he was nowhere to be found, in that encounter. It was the likes of Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, and Bernardo, of course, that actually came down to the party for Manchester City.
Arsenal came from behind to equalize 2-2 at the Emirates Stadium. Yes, Saka scored first. They allowed their opponents from Munich to equalize, and went ahead as well. But it was Odegaard who had 14 minutes to end of the encounter to ensure that the match ended on this 2-2 note.
Yes, of course, was such an impressive one. And but for me, Arsenal didn't. The performance yesterday is not what we've been seeing so far in the Premier League. A little bit,
Premier League is different from the Champions League.
Yes, a little bit short of it. Maybe the fact that they are playing against Bayern, and that history, probably the fact that they've not been always fantastic against Bayern, actually playing to the mind. But Bukayo Saka came to the party, and Trossard, of course, thank God for him. In that game, he was the one, of course, who created that difference and putting up that, second goal for them. And the question remains now: is there still hope for the Gunners when they get down to, Germany for the second leg for this particular one? For me, I think if they should be able to up, their game against Bayern Munich, when they get down to Germany, they were able to, of course, to hold this particular one. For what I saw yesterday, despite the strength and experience, we saw from Bayern Munich yesterday, I think the Gunners, they still have what it takes. Take a look at the players down there in, Arsenal. How many of them have that Champions League experience? But with the development, with the rejuvenation we've seen from Mikel Arteta now, I think the boys now, they now have that high mindset, to be able to challenge any team that come their way. Not a very bad result, if you ask me, despite the fact that in terms of performance, they didn't live up to expectation. having playing a 2-2 draw, I don't think it was a very bad performance. They can go down there at the Allianz Arena, of course, and be able, of course, to push up, this particular one. For me, it's not done and dusted, and I think the Gunners, of course, still have hope in this particular one.
UEFA Champions League continues tonight across Europe, and 2 matches will take place tonight. The first one will be in Spain. Atletico Madrid will take on Borussia Dortmund in a crack encounter. Atletico Madrid, you know, is one of the teams that really get to this stage every year at the UEFA Champions League. Meanwhile, in Paris, it will be Paris Saint-Germain against FC Barcelona. What an encounter this one will be, Kingsley.
What an encounter, Mr. Siri. And we're going to see probably, the last time I think these two teams met was in 2017, where Barcelona, of course, have to do a comeback. Brilliance, with a huge brilliance for Neymar Jr. and the likes of Lionel Messi, of course, giving them that victory this time around. But when you take a look at this time around, you don't have Neymar. You don't have Luis Suarez, you don't have Messi this time around, but you have a certain, Lemar, you have a certain Lewandowski as well for the Barcelona side. And I think from the players, of course, on ground, it has what it takes, of course, to be able to, get past Paris Saint-Germain. Paris Saint-Germain, they've also been very fantastic as well, putting up some unbeaten record down there, the French League. Coming into this particular one, they'll also be ready. And don't forget, this might possibly be the last season for the man Kylian Mbappe, and he will want to stake a claim. Maybe winning the UEFA Champions League for Paris Saint-Germain will actually mean a lot as well, for him. And the man, of course, will be coming out, for Barcelona at this time around. But let's just see how it goes. But for me, it will really be a very, very tough encounter tonight.
That will be it for this edition of Sports Talk. We'll be back at 6 p.m. Nigerian time to have an in-depth look at the UEFA Champions League fixtures. Atletico Madrid against Borussia Dortmund and Paris Saint-Germain, up against FC Barcelona. 2 teams that know what it means to be at this stage of the competition. Beyond that, we are told that the controversy about the appointment of a new coach in the Cameroon Football Association is heating up. It looks like Samuel Eto'o, the FA chairman in Cameroon, has given in to the Sports Ministry's official of appointment of a new coach. Details of all of this will come to you on our program Sports Extraordinary at 6 p.m. Nigerian time. Until then, remember, peace and unity are clearly pathways to progress. Always enjoy here on Atlantic Television Network.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.